me yet, my name is Joy. I am an avid reader and writer, and I'm currently working on the first draft of a high fantasy with a romantic subplot. Probably going to be a duology, but I'm currently only working on book 1, and I'm about 71,037 words in, which is very exciting. That's almost a complete draft right there, but we're not quite finished. And I was shooting for 100,000 words, and I was hoping to hit that by the end of March. We are now nearing mid-February, and I am not okay. I've been writing about 4,000 words a week, like that's been my goal. So I've been able to stay on track, honestly. I'm really shocked about that. Not all of the words are beautiful and smooth, and I'm very much a discovery writer, I've realized, because even if I outline things, and believe me, I've tried to outline things, nothing stays the way that I planned it. I have resigned myself to my fate a little bit. I'm leaning in. We're being flexible, but I really do hope that I can wrap up this story in the next 30,000 words. You know, during revisions, there's going to be lots of stuff that I'm going to take away, lots of stuff I'm going to add. I'm honestly really looking forward to revisions. I think that that might be one of my favorite stages of the process, especially line editing. Like, oh, I just can't wait for everything to come together and for the prose to be really pretty. I do want to lay out some rough goals for this week. So 4,000 words as usual, although I'm doing something that was not planned. And so this book is a double POV, dual POV. The terms are not in my brain right now, but there are two perspectives in the book. One is the main female character, Vera, and one is the main male character, Cecil. Spoiler alert, they end up kind of becoming love interests, and the story really does revolve around them for the most part, but there is a third character that's more of a supporting character, but she is the one that has the most page time other than Vera and Cecil. And I have been struggling with fleshing this character out and getting in this character's head and making it feel like, so I love the dynamic that she brings and the personality that she brings to the trio, because she tends to kind of rile things up a little bit, and she brings a very different perspective from the other two characters. But since I haven't been in her head yet, like I haven't written from her POV, I feel like she's missing that like oomph. Like she doesn't feel fully real to me. I've been trying to figure out a way to remedy that. I came up with an idea. It might be kind of a long shot. I mean, I don't know. If we do stick with the 100,000 word count, we are currently, 70% of the way through the book. So now would be potentially a jarring time to introduce a new POV, but these characters have become separated. At least Rosalind, this third character, has been separated from the other two characters. So I don't know whether or not I would actually keep this in the book, but I think that I want to write at least one scene from her POV while she's like separated from Vera and Cecil. And there are certain things that she can think and perceive. Hi, Alphonse, he's joined us. Hi. There are certain things that she might think and perceive, especially since she is separated from them, and there's kind of like okay, well, what's going on with this character? And she met a new character that's also very relevant to the plot, and it's like, okay, what things will she learn that the reader might want to know? I can summarize that in dialogue later, so like I can get the information to the reader in a different way, but I kind of want to just write the scene from her perspective very open-handedly. Like, I just want to try writing from her POV. I don't know whether or not I'm going to keep this in the book. I don't love writing scenes that I know probably won't make it into the book, but I think that it'll be really beneficial for her character for me to get in her head a little bit and to process what exactly her goals are and the way that she thinks. Theoretically, it could stay in the book depending on how it turns out and how the rest of the book turns out, and like whether or not it screws up with the pacing. Initially, I mean, I normally would not introduce a POV so late in the game, but I just read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and he did it to great effect, actually. Like, I cheered when the POV of this new character came up, like, in the second half of the book. I literally cheered. I was standing up. I was clapping. I was so happy to get a POV from this character. And I don't know if people would react this way to this character getting a POV, but I don't know, maybe. So there is precedent too, like if it serves the story and it serves the character, that sort of thing. Sure, why not throw in a little spicy random POV? for variety. I mean, not quite for variety, but like to serve the story, like whatever is best for the story ought to be done. So suffice it to say, I'm going to try doing that this week. I might finish the scene today. I might not finish it for a few days, or it might be all week. I don't really know. I mean, it's not going to be a 4,000 word scene, but like, I think I might be on the verge of getting sick right now. So like, immune system, come on, like I need your help. But okay, so like that's the first thing I'm going to work on, and then I guess I'll figure out from there. Theoretically, I have been thinking about going back and rewriting, or at least adding a new first chapter and like making the current first chapter chapter 2 instead. And I feel like I need to kind of do a better job at establishing the world and the characters initially, because I have a habit of starting like pretty much right on top of the inciting incident, which I think is great for a short story. I think is great for especially like contemporary or like lit fic stuff like that. I think it can really work. But in fantasy, because the world is so unfamiliar to the reader, I just fear that it's really jarring the way that it begins right now, because, you know, you really do jump right in. And I feel like the reader would benefit from spending maybe a little bit more time with Vera and understanding her mindset, if that makes sense. So I have pondered going back and adding that in the beginning, but I might do that later. I don't know. At a certain point, I wonder if I'm maybe procrastinating. This final quarter of the book is feeling really daunting to me, like genuinely. I mean, I generally know where we're going. I might need to cut some things out, but there's so much stuff going on and so many threads to pull together. And listen, I have written a lot of short stories and like creative nonfiction and poetry, and I've started at least 3 or 4 books. There were 2 main ones where I got much farther in. I've started many books. I've done lots of like world building, but I have never actually made it to this point in a book before, like this far to where you're turning the corner and you're getting to the end. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit scared to try to end this thing and end it well, because there's a lot that needs to happen and a lot that needs to come together, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do? But anyway, I'm just trying to trust the process, lean in, and pray that it all works out. My mantra right now is I'll figure it out in a revision. So I am, of course, gonna get to writing. But before I do that, I've been thinking about reading a couple of little excerpts out for you guys of my writing. Obviously, full disclaimer that it's a first draft. It may or may not wind up in the book. Things will most likely change, but these excerpts specifically are a little bit more on the polished side, hence why I'm sharing them, because like I don't think that there are any placeholders. I'm fairly happy with them. Like I like it. I like them. I guess for context, here's another thing. I have been struggling so hard with the pitch of this book. Now, I've seen like the recipes for a pitch. I know that you're supposed to include, what is it, like character, conflict, potentially setting, and you can order it in a certain way. Like there's different ways that you can arrange it, but like a 1 or 2 sentence pitch. And I am struggling because when I came up with this story, I was not thinking about like a high level, high concept pitch. If you saw my last video, I made a video where I was just sharing my ideas for future books, and I feel like most of those could be a lot more high concept or like much easier to pitch, at least in the way that I've come up with the idea in my mind. But this project, so much of it has been discovery writing, and it's unfolded so naturally, but it did not start off with a very clean idea. I just sort of figured it out as I went. So it feels like I have so many different threads and things I feel like I need to explain in order to get it. But I guess let me practice it now. I haven't spent any time like sitting down writing this out. I tried a few times a couple months ago and I gave up, but I'm going to try again now, but like literally verbally process it in front of you, and we'll see how we do. But okay, I'm going to try to give you some necessary information for you to kind of grasp potentially what's going on. 50 years ago, the god of humans disappeared, and with his disappearance came a blight across half of the continent that rendered it uninhabitable, like to the point of the land itself trying to feed on your soul, uninhabitable. Vera, our main woman, is a guild apprentice, and she is a talented mana scourer, which means that she is able to sense the presence of mana, or the energy that fuels magic. And since the disappearance of the human god, mana has grown very, very scarce, and it can only be found in Lithium, which are these geode-like rocks that are scattered throughout the wastes. which is like the blighted land. However, Vera has not been performing very well at her job. She's this close to getting ousted from the guild, which she does not want because her being in the guild is number one, the way that she provides for her family, and number two is the one place where she has felt a sliver of belonging. But one day, she's on an expedition in the wastes and she follows a mana trail. But instead of finding a lithium, she finds a man named Cecil, who should not have survived. But unfortunately, he can't remember anything. He doesn't know how he got there. So the guildmaster tasks Vera with trying to figure all that out. I already know I'm not explaining this very well, so I'm just going to read you a few lines. Should I use my fancy podcasting mic? Hopefully it's not too jarring to switch the mics, but I feel like that mic will be nicer for reading excerpts. I guess it's time to find out whether or not it would be a good idea for me to ever narrate my own audiobooks. Probably not. This first very small excerpt is from near the beginning of the book. Vera is entering into the wastes, which is that uninhabitable, deadly place of land. As the wagon creaked along the elevated wooden path that separated the land of the living from the land of the dead, Vera squeezed the lines and suppressed a shudder, hoping to not pass her nerves to the horses. Tongues of mist rose from the bog below, carrying with them the smell of rotting wood and swamp blooms. The thrum of toads and insects was oddly comforting. It meant that they still had time. Silence would be the first sign they were crossing into the wastes. This next excerpt is quite a bit farther along in the story. Vera and Cecil have already met. They're already somewhat familiar with each other. They have started on their quest, but Cecil is having a moment of internality and inner conflict. They're in the middle of traveling, and both Vera and Rosalind are asleep, but Cecil cannot sleep, so here he is, alone with his thoughts. Cecil struck flint beside a mess of kindling. He prayed that the sparks would catch, but the longer he tried, the more he accepted that fire starting was not one of his latent talents. His hands felt awkward and unnatural holding the cold iron. The rain had stopped, but despite the oppressive darkness, he could not sleep as Rosalind and Vera did, so he had hoped to stir up the flames as company. The embers would have been a pleasant surprise to Vera in the morning, he imagined. A warm breakfast to soothe a sore throat. Alas, he was useless. He rearranged the wood atop the bed of rocks, wincing at its dampness. A wet stick seldom caught fire. That much he knew. Still, he kept trying. Odd as it were, he felt sorry for the kindling. These sticks were cast from their tree, but stifled by moisture, they could not even serve a purpose in death. He did not like the idea of giving up on them. A tightness gathered in his chest. He struck the flint again. Did Vera know that he had not been honest with her? A thought haunted him. That she knew, yes, but even more that he was a dishonest individual. The lie had come so easily. She had asked him if he remembered anything while they were in her father's garden, how he knew the name Heaven Grasp. The answer had come flooding, catching in his throat. He overlooked a city of light, and the Heaven Grasp gleamed above. He stood with a familiar woman who introduced to him the Heaven Grasp, her favorite flower, and a key ingredient to something vital. But in the same breath, he looked at Vera and said that he did not know. Did he so covet the memory that he feared that, in releasing it, it would no longer be his own? No, the recollection was more like a baby bird that he felt the urge to protect and keep close to his chest. Still, the guilt pooled in his lungs, making each breath laborious. He struck the flint again. If he were benevolent, would he not be eager to share his first blooming memory with Vera, even or especially if it required his own self-sacrifice? Her quest and livelihood hinged upon him remembering and adding pieces to the puzzle she needed to solve. But she had so many stories. He now had just one. A fragment. Was it wrong to keep it to himself? Okay, I think I'll do one more. This one might kind of have like some light spoilers, but like, it's fine. This is sort of where the chemistry between Vera and Cecil starts to get stronger. Like, they have good character interactions. They have a good foundation before this point, but this is like the first time things are spoken aloud a little bit. And I just think it's really sweet. So yeah, I'm going to read it. Also, side note, Cecil is supposed to have like a different accent from everyone else. I haven't decided, like, I don't have like a specific accent in mind that he has. I just know that it's different. You know, it's whatever the reader imagines his accent to be that's different from everyone else, I guess. I'm not like great at accents, but I think that I will, for the sake of being true to this story, have some vague accent for him. Okay. I don't think you understand, Cecil, Vera said. You've just presented us with two very unexpected turns. One, you don't even want to remember, which is not exactly helpful to our goals. And two, now you're hearing voices. One voice, he corrected, which means the entire foundation of the onus is breaking apart. Vera looked away from Cecil, instead concentrating on her hands. She drew a thumb across the teeth of her comb. Between those two things, what makes it even worth pursuing anymore? You're worth it, Vera. Stunned, she looked up. Cecil's stare held the zeal of burning pine needles. His declaration had hit her between the eyes, earnest, yearning. Her mouth went dry. She couldn't think of anything to say. Had anyone ever told her that? That she was worth it? By herself? Okay, so those are some lines from my book. Again, literally anything is subject to change, even some like potential plot threads that are in here. I mean, I'm holding it all very open-handedly, but in general, I feel like this is a fairly good representation of what my book is like. And of course, these are more polished parts. I've got plenty of stuff that's more zero draft flavored or has like lots of placeholders going on, some scenes that I've like really skipped over and I'm like, this is a brief synopsis of what's gonna happen in this scene. Some scenes that are like way too long and over explained that I'm gonna need to shave down because like for pacing purposes it's just not gonna work. These are the polished parts of my draft, so like keep that in mind. You know, if you're doing your own first draft, this is not what my entire first draft looks like. But okay, I really need to get to writing today if I want to write anything. So let's do that. Today is Tuesday, and already this week, starting, the last 2 days, like Sunday and Monday, I've written 1,398 words, which at this point in the week, I think is fairly solid. But oh my goodness, that scene, I'm still working on that scene that I referenced earlier in this vlog. The one that's from the POV of one of like my side characters, but like the most relevant side character. Obviously, in revision, I might change my mind. But as of right now, the characterization that this scene is offering of both Rosalind and Theodluin, the other character that she's kind of having this scene with, it's a newer character. I mean, they're both very important to the plot, to the story, and to our main two characters' journeys. I, as a discovery writer, am discovering so much. And I actually came up with something that I had considered a few months ago, but at the time I was like, nah, that's a dumb idea. But now that the idea has resurfaced, I'm like, oh no, that is not a dumb idea. That's actually kind of a brilliant idea. So I haven't fully committed to that idea yet, but it has to do with certain character dynamics. And it's one of those things that I'll seed it, and if the reader guesses it and is correct, they'll be super excited about the fact that they guessed it. And if they didn't guess it, but then it came up, like it's one of those things that will be, in retrospect, very clear, but also has major implications. I'm excited about that idea that I am just now kind of seeding a little bit more, which again, like this started off as a scene that I was not planning on including, but I was just feeling like something was missing and this might bridge the gap. I don't know. However, I will say that every single time I've sat down to write this scene, and by every single time I've sat down to write this scene, that's 2 times. You were with me both times, Sunday and Monday. I really seriously struggled initially. It took me a long time to get the words flowing and to even know what I wanted to happen. I was very like, this feels stilted. This feels unnatural. Like, what am I even going to say? But the more that I was writing it, the more that I got into it, the more I was like, oh, okay. So like last night, for example, I think I wrote like 800 something words, and that was kind of a late night. I was writing from like 11:30 to 12:30 at night. Initially, from like 11:30 to midnight, I was so dry. Like I had maybe 200 words over the span of 30 minutes, which is not very much for me at all. And they like weren't good words either. They were like largely placeholders and me being like, okay, bracket, Rosalind reacts to this, and bracket, Theodluin, action, and bracket. And the only things that I was having was like dialogue. Dialogue is usually the thing that comes easiest to me. Like it's usually the thing that comes first in a scene. Oh my goodness. Basically, once the clock hit midnight, something clicked, and I came up with a few ideas, and I was like, this is it. This is how it's going. Like I just sort of found my characters' voices and, wrote like another 600 words in the span of 30 minutes. So yeah, that was an interesting experience. I am itching to write again, but unfortunately, I fear that if I were to try to write right this second, my brain, like I'm just feeling so distracted today because I have a work project that I turned in a couple days ago. The feedback on it is coming back today. I'm going to need to like incorporate that feedback, but it's a really big project. So I'm sort of like waiting for the feedback, and as soon as it comes in, like it has to be really quick turnaround because the project is going to be sent to the printer tomorrow. And so I'm just feeling that anticipation of like, I don't know how much feedback there's going to be. I don't know how intense it is, like if they're even going to like it, but like we're on a tight deadline. So it's just, I have a hard time focusing on anything else if I have something like that looming over me. At least, I mean, I can like vlog, I can talk and verbally process things, but I would have a hard time getting into my story or into anything that's brain intensive. Usually during times like this, I tend to like while away my anxiety by cleaning the house feverishly. But instead, I'm talking to you. So unfortunately, I'm not sure that I'm even going to have time to write today because of that work project, but I did want to touch base with you, tell you what my experience was. And then the last thing that I wanted to do for this vlog, which I considered making this a week-long vlog, but at this point, with how much footage I have, I am incapable. I don't know if I ever make a week-long vlog, it's gonna be like 2 hours long. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I just yap way too much. Like, I don't know how to censor myself, frankly. But I did ask for some questions in my community tab, like my posts tab. And I think I'll plan to kind of scatter these questions throughout reading vlogs like this, because I think that it's kind of a fun way to answer questions and, you know, let you guys get to know me a little bit more, answer the things that you want to know, that sort of thing. I'm going to come back and check this post periodically. So if you have any questions, actually, go check out that post and feel free to comment on it, even though I posted it like a week ago at least. At this point that this video is coming out, it's probably been like 3 weeks. But yes, if you have any questions, this is a place to drop them and I will continue to check this post. But okay, I'm going to answer one question. Well, it's technically 2 questions, but it's one person's comment. But okay, it is, what is a genre you have never written in but would like to try? And 2, what is a genre you don't think you will ever write in? In order to answer which genre I haven't written in but would like to try, I have to process which genres I have written in. So hang on. All of the books so far that I've tried to write specifically have been more fantasy, like different types of fantasy. Like one of them was more of a middle grade portal fantasy, which is very typical for that age group. Another one was more like, it was very much inspired from the Warrior Cat series because it was talking foxes instead of talking cats. I wrote that one when I was like 10 or 11. Al, can you move, please? I love you so much, but you were just like bathing yourself right in front of the camera. Wow, imagine that with no context. Then I've written a number of short stories, especially the ones in college were more kind of contemporary literary fiction coded for the most part. One of them was definitely like, it had more of a speculative twist. Like it was magical realism actually, because a woman was getting harassed by a shrew, but it was like surreal and completely normal. If you were reading it, you would be like, okay, is this all symbolic? Is this part of her imagination? Or like, is this actually happening? And then I also had one that was based in the 80s and was maybe like a little bit more of a thriller. But honestly, like there's lots of genres that I have never written. What I'm writing right now is a fantasy with a romantic subplot. And this is actually my first time writing romance, but I've never written just straight romance. I would maybe consider romance. I don't know. I feel like I find contemporary romance to be a little bit boring. Now, I mean, I'll read the odd Emily Henry book or something, but it would have to be the right setting for it to be a romance that I'd be interested in writing if it weren't fantasy as well. So maybe romance could technically count for that. That would be like my first choice. My second choice would probably be trying my hand at a mystery. I feel like that would be really daunting, but I don't know. That could be interesting. And then what's a genre you don't think you'll ever write in? Honestly, probably horror. I just don't think that my brain could come up with like purposely trying to scare someone. Like I just don't know. Like I could make someone sad. I could make someone happy. I could make someone excited with my words, but scaring them, I just don't even know how I would go about doing that. And that would probably require me to read more. Ouch, dude, that was so rude. I guess it was my fault. But that would probably require me to read more horror to get to know the genre. I'm fine with the occasional horror, like Monstrilio is more of like a literary horror. I really enjoyed that book. I thought it was super well written. But the more like mainstream horror novels, I mean, I guess I've read some Stephen King too, but I'm not touching like Pet Sematary. Anyway, that's sort of where I'm at. So let's see, where am I at in my book as a whole at this point? How many words do we even have? Oh my goodness, 72,435 words. But anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap up this vlog here. It was a little bit chaotic, a little bit aimless. We did a little bit of everything, but we had fun together, I hope. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have a question to ask, don't forget to go check out my community like posts tab on my channel. Go find that post. Maybe I'll even link it below if I can. What am I gonna do with you? And I hope that whatever project you're working on or creative endeavor goes well. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.